Nobody cares. Today on the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Welcome, spacemen. I don't know how that has to do with today's thing. Yes, I do.
Oh, I can tie it in.
I was going to say I can tie it in if I want to.
I don't even think it's that hard to tie in.
That's true. I could go either way on it.
Well, now I'm curious how you would tie it in.
So, spaceman, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome today because Matt's not here, and Mike and I are both imposters.
Yeah, Matt is, if you haven't noticed from when we're together, Matt is the one that has all of the intelligent things to say.
He's always like, on page 37 of this one book I read, Dr. So-and-so said this. And I'm always like, I once watched the TV show Scrubs.
Although I will say, at least as it seems to me, you and Matt will say something and you at least know who he's talking about. Half the time I'm just sitting over here. You guys wonder why I'm silent all the time. It's because half the time I'm like, I don't know who they're talking about.
Maybe I'm just good at faking being like, oh, yes, totally. Dr. Strokes. Indeed. I loved his controversial work, but let's not talk about that now. I BS'd my way through grad school. Sometimes, honestly, I look at the way, I remember learning in grad school that I do not seem to learn the way everyone else does. I felt like everyone in my classes was always like Matt. We'd all read the same articles, and they would be coming in, and they'd highlighted lines and this says this and this, and I was always like, well, I mean, the gist of this thing was this to me, and because of that, then it makes me think, okay, well, this connects to this, and I'd make these connections, but it was always based on the assumption that the gist of what this guy was saying was this,
right? Which means if your gist was wrong.
Right. Then
every connection you made has fallen apart.
And my connections can sound really cool until it's like, Rob, he was talking about Twinkies. And I'm like, oh, I missed that first
well, in that
line.
case, nothing.
This is what's funny.
Nothing I said is relevant anymore.
So if we say nobody cares, I mean, I was thinking, actually, I had this thought, and this kind of kills me. I recently was reading this article about what do they call it? Mansphere?
The man in the mirror?
Mansphere. I'm just going to keep saying it.
Mansphere.
And I thought we call ours the Spaceverse, but apparently we should call it the Manoverse. Because then we're encompassing the Mansphere. But they're talking about the Mansphere, which is this world inside of podcasting specifically that is geared towards men and masculinity. And the biggest ones they referenced were things like some guy, I can't remember, I recognize his face and I've seen some of his podcast stuff. He had Tony Robbins on once. His name is, I don't remember. He's like a recovering alcoholic or a recovering addict. Anyway, he's funny. He's got he's honest in his podcast. And then they also referenced, I think, Joe Rogan. Sure. And I felt like, dude, all these podcasts,
probably
the way they talked about
Jacko.
I can't remember, man. What'd you call it? Jacko?
Jacko
Theo.
Or Jocko.
His name is Theo.
No, not him. There's some ex-Navy SEAL.
Well, what's funny about all these things is the ones I've listened to, I feel like, I just feel like, man, I guess I should really try marketing this thing. Because I never do. And we should probably actually try getting actual, we'd had that long stretch where we were bringing on guests, obviously guests that no one knew. We weren't bringing on anybody famous because we're not famous.
No. But
just thinking, the people who get the serious downloads, I think, well, why are people listening to them? I mean, not like, I think Matt has a lot of good things to say, and I can make a lot of jokes. Although,
Mike, we're not sure what you bring to the table, so this will be your last episode.
And Mike is the rear admiral. But
I forgot about that.
It does make me like the nobody cares. It's like, oh, I can see that being It's like, I feel like an imposter doing this podcast. I hate telling people sometimes that I have you have a podcast, Rob? Yes. Who doesn't? I mean, my great Aunt Susan has a podcast. And part of me is like, yeah, we got a podcast. We've been doing it for like almost 3 years now. I mean, Matt and I have been working on it for like 5 years.
I was going to say, I think we're longer than 3 years.
No, I thought we hit 3 years in August.
No, the first time I came was December 2020.
Yeah, we didn't start posting anything until at least 6 months later.
Right, but that still would have been 2021. We're almost halfway through 2025.
I mean, I'll tell you, Mike.
So you're almost 4 years.
What is this? That's a new stat. I don't even know what that means. Hold on. Everybody, podcasters, I mean, spacemen, just sit and wait and listen. Our very first episode was July 17th, 2021. So we're hitting 4 years.
Just shy of 4 years.
And what do we have to show for it? A couple of angel investors and patron saints. And not enough of those. Tax write-offs, because everything is like, well, I'll do this for the Manspace, which admittedly, a lot of these things, like I actually thought we could do another episode on like family dynamics. My microphone's going to come off. Is in terms of like brothers, and that there's stuff out of that, which is why. Anyway, it's like I'm saying this as though some CPA is going to be listening, like,
and then report us to the IRS. There's this random therapist down in Texas, and I heard that he is claiming things that he
probably owes you guys at least $1,000. Well, let's get after that guy. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going anymore with that, except for the idea that
I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Which I've done before, actually, a long time ago. I did one that was like, does anybody... There are people I know who love this show. And there are people who actually I work with now because they found this show and then found me.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable to me that anyone could hear me on this podcast and then think,
that guy.
That's the professional I'm going with. In fact, lately, let's see if I can show you this without being obscene. My leg looks like this. Can you see that?
Well, sure. I don't know what it's going to look like on a clean recording. It's all digital for me. So,
well, it won't look like anybody who's not on YouTube. Basically, it looks like I had a bad street fight with a cat. But I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Oh, because clients have been like, what happened to your leg, dude? And I'm like, oh, I was carrying 2 bags of, like 4 bags, 2 in each hand of
catnip.
Leaves. No, yes, catnip. And they all just started attacking me of leaves. And apparently there's a stick sticking out, just scraping my leg up. I didn't notice I was in the shower showering. I was like, why is my leg burning?
And then you look down and there's just blood in the water.
It's like a bad movie. But anyway, I was sitting there thinking with clients like, I wonder if they're ever like, I sure wish Rob would wear pants. Maybe put on some closed-toed shoes, Rob. Maybe not wear a T-shirt to every single session. I'm supposed to do like a career day thing with some teenagers coming up. I feel like, do I tell them, you guys, I just wear whatever I want every day?
Yeah, you do.
I got a TV in my office. I just watch TV during session.
The further I get away from teaching, the fewer shirts with collars I wear. I just don't.
I'm actually starting to. I'm very picky. I've decided it's not that I'm opposed to shirts with collars. It's that I'm very picky about which ones I use. And there's a polo shirt that I freaking love.
Yeah, but isn't it like?
It's like $90 a polo shirt.
I'm not
$100.
So just so you are aware, the average cost of Mike's item of clothing, $10. My pants that I wear, my pants and my shorts are about $15 each. My shirts are about $8 a pop. That's the kind of money I'm spending on my wardrobe.
My t-shirts are about $20 a piece.
Yeah, no.
Because
I tried
had
your
that
t-shirts.
I
Actually.
had the subscription. Yeah.
I tried it.
I also have I have another company.
Unflattering.
But my shorts are actually probably like, I mean, I've had the same four pairs of shorts for like 3 or 4 years now, and I just keep wearing them over and over. And they were all probably like $50 a pair.
Yeah.
But I did have a client once tell me, he goes, "Hey, look, Rob, you're making good money. You charge a lot per hour. You can afford like maybe just go to like, I get the comfort thing. So maybe just Lululemon, like you can just treat yourself, right? Like stop buying Old Navy clothes." And I was like, I get the idea too of being like, that's fine, dude, if you're going to wear like t-shirts, but up your game a little bit, don't wear a t-shirt with a hole in it or,
I actually
which I don't.
I found a company and I loved their t-shirts. The first like 2 that I got from them. And then I bought like 3 others and they became
True
horribly
Classic.
inconsistent. No, I didn't like True Classic. Their sleeves were too long.
Stupid.
I can't remember. It's actually the t-shirt I'm wearing. It's like classic or clean, fresh, clean threads. I think used to be fresh, clean tees.
Yeah.
The first couple I got like, and they're still the 2 of them are my favorite. Like I freaking love them. But every one I've ever bought since, they end up being like really long. And I'm like, guys, I'm not buying a freaking mini skirt. Like it's a t-shirt. It shouldn't go down to my mid thighs.
What's funny about this? This is like a fashion episode from 2 idiots. Like,
I know.
Like it's like doing a fashion show, but you're only allowed to go inside of TJ Maxx.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the most expensive thing I'm wearing today is actually probably is the t-shirt for like $17.
That's what I do. Because actually, I just watched again the movie Crazy Stupid Love, which is so good.
It's so good. Ryan Gosling in that movie.
When he takes Michael Scott with Steve Carell to go buy new clothes, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is me. Because I was with Becky in Men's Warehouse for my son, and she's like, oh, you'd look good in this, and you'd look good in this. And I was like, so you're saying I should up my wardrobe? Stop wearing t-shirts and shorts and like New Balance. Like, whatever. I don't wear New Balance.
Which that's the funny thing. Like I actually like you and I both like our dress shoes.
Well, I spent a lot of money a lot in my mind. I spent $200 on my dress shoes.
Are you still Stacey Adams?
No, I upgraded because I wanted more comfort.
That's the funny thing. Stacey Adams, I think, are actually freakishly comfortable.
Not if you have a Morton's Neuroma. Oh. I wanted a wider toe box. Dude, I can't remember what they're called. They're actually, for a while, they were very hip. They're the style is $0 It's like, I don't know if it's Cole Haan or whatever, but they're the ones that have like almost, a lot of times it'll be like black shoes with a white sole. Yeah. It's like a very chunky sole, but they're comfy.
What's it called?
$0. This, it's like we've forgotten we're on a podcast. Yeah, Cole Haan.
I have not,
but I have like just a brown wingtip that has
Cole
that has a brown sole. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, they're down in price. Wow. Oh, maybe they're not. Nope, the ones I have are not down in price. So, back to the show.
Back to we don't care.
And imposter.
No one cares.
Does anyone care? We care. I care. I've thought many times. I do think, although we have to go back and revisit the anxiety ADHD episode because people sometimes, I think, want a little more definitive answer from us. Mm-hmm. And I do think we are probably more qualified I shouldn't say probably, we are more qualified than many people who do men's podcasts to talk about a definitive answer. The hard part is once you've gotten enough knowledge in a field, you start to realize, there's often not a really definitive answer. It's a little more complicated than that. But that's not the point, because today we're talking about how most humans I know at some place in their life feel some degree of imposter syndrome. which you would define as what? You're faking it. Everybody knows you suck.
Yeah, that's where the no one cares. That was like its connection to me is, and admittedly, this, I think I've talked about it on here before. Lots of times, especially when my mental health is less than stellar, my default mindset is no one actually cares. Like when I finally graduated with my master's, I pretty much didn't tell anybody. Jenner had to reach out because she knew I wasn't going to say anything. And she's like, Mike, why aren't you saying anything? And I thought, because Jenner, no one actually cares. They all have their own stuff going on. Like, they don't care that I finished my degree. Like, how does it impact them? It doesn't. Like, they don't care. And so that, like, I think, right? Like, I think that's a very, to me, it's kind of that idea of, like, that idea comes from, like, it's all for show, I guess. Like, I'm clearly not explaining it well, but it's that feeling of just like, yeah, it doesn't matter, I guess. And I'm probably like, I clearly don't, it's not a big enough deal. I'm not like an expert.
Right.
But people will look at me like I'm the expert, but I'm not.
That's what's funny is like people will often be like, Rob, you have a PhD. And I'll be like, you guys, I don't think you understand what that means. Like, especially in a field that really is not a science. Like, I'd love to say, like, the most I could tell you is I went through a lot of years sitting in rooms with people and thinking. Like, I mean, I will admit, and I've done this long enough now that I have realized one of the factors that goes into any decisions I ever have around raising rates, for example, is knowing the market around me, but also knowing like my education level, but more specifically my experience level, which is not just experience in terms of like how long I've been doing this, which is now, I mean, I've been
since
doing
2011
therapy in some ways. Well, yes,
well, yeah, therapy in some ways
practice,
longer
doing
than
therapy
that.
in some ways for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And in fact, depending on how you define it, based on the jobs I had before, 20 plus years. But being able to also say that I've taught multiple courses at the undergraduate and graduate level on this. And yeah, I've published crap in this, which the published part to me, it's like people are like, oh, you publish stuff? I'm like, yeah, in journals that no one's ever going to read. Like nobody gives a crap.
And don't you have to? Like, isn't it a requirement for the PhD?
Well, you at least have to submit something.
Right.
That's at least the program I was at. You have to submit something for publication. It doesn't have to be accepted.
I was going to say, as I went looking for, like, as I looked into like various PhD programs, almost all of them had a similar requirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
usually
an expectation that you produce something that you submit for publication.
Yeah. And the good news for
your,
the good news for me was I did my, master's degree at a program that required a thesis. So I was able to just take that thesis and then trim it down and make it into an article that got accepted. And then I've had a few others beyond that. I'm not, my dissertation is also a published article. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm not first author on it.
You're not first author on your own dissertation?
I mean, I am on my dissertation, but not on the published article version of it. Because my friend, he's like, hey, my friend who was second author, he's like, hey, I'm gonna trim this down for you and turn it into a publishable article, but I want to be first author. And I was like, because he needed it for his vita. So I was like, all right, dude, no one gives a crap. Like what I'm doing, no one cares anymore. So I was like, whatever. So it's funny because it's like, looks like I didn't even write my dissertation. But it doesn't matter to me. So anyway, we're not getting at this imposter syndrome thing. We kind of, we are, because it's kind of funny, even with all this stuff. Way. I don't think people believe me when I tell them, like, I still sit in my office and this isn't, I think this probably clients don't want to hear this. Like, wait, what? Like, I sit in my office sometimes. I'm like, do I even know what the crap I'm doing? Like, and part of it is because I think I've always had a little bit of imposter syndrome. I never want expectations to be high of me.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I step into a role where someone quote unquote expects something, it's like, I'm a fraud. You're going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing.
Yep.
Because in the end, I actually genuinely believe most of us, we know, in terms of knowing what you're doing, like whatever I do will go really well. I don't think that exists.
No.
But I think that's part of imposter syndrome, actually, is we believe that there is somebody or multiple somebodies out there who are so good at this that it will always go well.
Mm-hmm.
Like that they just know what they're doing and it's like second nature to them. And the more I've done this, the more I realize nobody knows that, especially not in the field of therapy. Like, dude, there just is there's so many factors you can't control anyway.
Right.
But I'm curious, like, I don't, ultimately, I think we have to talk about how most people, I don't think, need defining on what imposter syndrome is. I think the various ways it plays out is pretty intense, but what?
Well, I will say before you go on to wherever you're going, I am always a little bit surprised how many people, how much they feel like they're the only ones who deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where like people kind of describe it and I think, yeah, this is really normal. And the looks that I'll get from them, like, you mean I'm not the only one? And it's like, right? Imposter syndrome. That's kind of the point.
Right.
Yes,
right.
You do think you're the only one.
Right.
You think everyone else knows exactly what they're talking about and you're the one faking it.
Right.
But it still always catches me off guard.
Well, it does surprise me when you meet somebody like, actually, we were just talking about our friend John. And he did a little presentation. I was like, hey man, good job. He's like, yeah, I hope, like, I was like, no, it's good. He's like, yeah, it was a good conversation. It was a really good discussion. People got into some good stuff. And I was like, you did a good job. He's like, yeah, I just never know. Like, and I felt like, yeah, I get the never knowing thing, which is slightly different than like imposter syndrome, but it feeds into it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Why am I being asked to do this?
Right.
And that's, I don't know if this is true for everybody. My biggest thing with imposter syndrome, like when people are like, where does it come from? Mine comes from, I will let you down. And if I let you down, it means I suck as a human.
Yep.
And so that's why I want to try so hard to like, undersell and over deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want you to expect absolute crap so that if I deliver like mediocrity, I'll be like, hey, that was pretty good. That's how I win at life. I was just talking with somebody recently. I was like, I looked at my SAT score, my ACT score, my GRE, my high school rank. I think we've talked about this before. And I realized I am like nailing the exact average on all of them. Like, I'm the most average dude that exists.
Mediocrity.
And if you throw in, for some reason, this fits with me, that my blood type is AB positive, which is I can take anybody's blood. Like, I'm just like a big old, like, just a turd stain of like, well, there's the medium.
There's the
no one's excited about
mediocrity.
Rob. Yeah. I was like, how's Rob? Meh. But
which I do think that's part of where imposter syndrome stems from, is I think we have inherently within us a desire to be known for something. Now, maybe not be famous,
Yeah.
because that isn't something everyone craves, but everyone wants within the sphere that is their, I think, that is within the sphere that is their life. They want to be known. They don't want to be this like easily replaceable, like adds no value person. Like I've come across this a couple of times in the last few weeks where people just really kind of struggle with feeling like, I don't think I have anything to contribute, and I will, constantly be in conversations where I could just excuse myself and I don't think anyone would notice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that desire to be known, I think, really feeds the imposter syndrome.
I think that is true. And because I think like for me, I 100% identify with the idea of like, I want to be known. And I do have a drive to be known, and I'm really working on not doing this because it's very exhausting. Because it doesn't, and maybe if I was actually good at this, it wouldn't be exhausting. But like, I think part of my drive to be known is that in my mind, I have dichotomized it to, if you are known, you are worth something. If you are not, you are not worth anything.
Yeah.
And so I think it goes beyond being known into, I want to know that I am good and capable. And I think there is something innate in all of us. At some level, we want to be accepted by the people around us. And for most of us, unfortunately, our acceptance has always been at least a little bit, even inside of family dynamics where we're loved unconditionally. It's always been a little bit conditional. No parent says it that way, but there is like well, you didn't do this and now we're disappointed. So it's like, okay, so that feels like you don't love me, like, so I do think it, where it comes from, I do, like you're saying, I think there's some innateness to it. I don't think it's like your parents screwed you up, and there are people out there who never struggle from imposter syndrome because their parents love them so well.
No, and that's the funny thing. Like I would actually argue, and I've said it before, like to me, I think, yeah, to feel disappointment about a decision that somebody makes, or, to be disappointed in them, is not the same thing as to be unloved. That's what it feels like, especially to like a teenage brain. But like, I think we see this frequently in society now. Like, they don't understand how you can disagree with me but still accept me. I don't have to agree with you to accept you. Like, you're welcome to do whatever you want over there, as long as it, isn't killing somebody. Like, go for it.
Right.
I don't have to agree with your decision.
Right.
But like, that's what you want to do, go do it. It's fine. But again, to them, it tends to feel so much like, so you don't love me. Well, I never said that. It's not even that I feel that.
Right.
I do think as parents, like, I made this mistake often as a parent. I think you have poor wording. I think no, you're often not necessarily, you're disappointed in the decision that was made. Now, maybe there are parents that are like, no, I'm just disappointed in my kid. Like, there are those parents out there, but I think for most, no, they're disappointed in the decision, and they're disappointed in, like, it usually is attached to a slight breach of trust. And I think, yeah, that's difficult. They don't know what to do with it anymore. As a parent, like, I'm not sure what this means for the relationship. So I'm disappointed.
Right.
So anyway, that's all.
Well, and I'm actually, it's kind of funny. Like, I think there's a mistake in thinking sometimes with clients will come in and think, well, if we talk about my childhood history, we mentioned this a little bit last week, I think, even on the podcast. If we talk about my childhood history, then things will clear up and I'll confront the right things and everything. And I think, well, look, some of this is every parent, quote unquote, screws their kid up. So we can't really address that. But I have a couple ideas in my head, and maybe you're ready for this, maybe you're not. But what do you feel like is like, this is how you help somebody move past imposter syndrome? Get ready for the nuggets.
I don't know. It's obviously, this is still something that I'm like working, because I don't have a clear concrete, this is what I do every time. But my initial, at the time, or at the moment, my approach tends to be two things. One, I tie the imposter back to anxiety, and I get them to look at it as, no, this is just one of the ways your anxiety is showing up. To try to get them to start separating it from, right? Michael White, I think, refers to it as externalizing the problem. I want them to separate it from themselves. I don't want them to see it as, I'm an imposter. Mm-hmm. I want them to see it as, this is what my anxiety is telling me. My anxiety is telling me I'm an imposter. Mm-hmm. And then I'll often talk a lot with them about confidence, and how they develop it, like their ideas of how they develop it. We'll talk about my ideas of how and where confidence comes from, which I've talked on here about that before, that it's, to me, while true confidence is internal, like that's the only confidence that, like that's the sweet spot for confidence. It's an internal thing. For most people, it starts externally. It starts because we hear over and over again, like in your case, wow, Rob, you're really funny. And so you hear it enough and you start to look for the evidence yourself that,
I don't even have to look.
Like, oh, when I do these things, I can see the reactions I get and I can see people, responding. And so, like, yeah, I can see that I'm funny. I can see that I know how to walk into a room and make people laugh and make them feel comfortable. For me with teaching, the imposter syndrome was huge for me. I never went through the programs at school. I did it while I was teaching. So my degree wasn't in teaching. My degree was in English. And I took the teaching courses the first 3 years I was in the classroom. So my first day with a class was just my first day with a class. I never student taught. I never did any of that. And I felt like the biggest fraud. And every year teachers get evaluated, and every year I always hit expectations at a minimum, and I often exceeded them. And in classroom management, I always exceeded them. In 14 years, I always exceeded expectations in management in the classroom. And so at some point, I started to think, oh, maybe there's something to that. Like, if I'm so consistently hearing it, maybe there's something to it. And so I start looking for it. And once I start looking for it, I can see, oh yeah, I know how to do this. Right. And so then it shifts from being this external thing to being an internal thing. Once I can see that, it becomes easier to find evidence, not just of that, but of things related to that. Mm-hmm. And so that's often how I'll approach it with them, is right to get them to begin to externalize it by recognize it for the anxiety that it is. Mm-hmm. And then starting to find, like, where's your confidence weak around this, and why is your confidence weak around this, and what's it going to take to build up your confidence around this thing. Like, I think with a lot of clients, like, because this is often, at least in my, the work with people, it often shows up when they're like starting a new job.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, I mean, I just, like, they're like, I might have stretched some things in the interview, and like, like they think I can do all these things, and I haven't done those things in like 15 years. And I think, yeah, but they still hired you, and they were under no obligation to do that.
Right.
Like the fact that they're offering you this money, like they didn't have to do that either. They could have offered you less. Like they see something in you. So trust that for now. Trust that they are under no obligation to keep you. If they want to fire you in 2 weeks, they'll fire you in 2 weeks. If they haven't fired you yet, you're doing okay.
Not to mention the idea that's like when people are like, I mean, I kind of fudged this. It's like, did you? Like,
right.
We're usually harder on ourselves than somebody outside would be. So,
right. Chances that unless you like full on made something up, we tend to sell ourselves, to undersell ourselves more often than not.
Well, here's my 2 to 3 tips.
Nuggets.
Rob's pro tips. Rob's nuggets.
Rob's nuggets.
Juicy tenders. The first one, actually, this one is a way of looking at the first 2 are actually ways to look at it. And then the second 2 are like, here's some things to focus on, I think, that have been helpful to me at least. One is, I do think you have to stop believing that there is a standard correct way to do things. Like I've talked about this with people about like testing scores. Like I know people who talk about, well, what's your IQ? And I'm like, I literally have no idea. I've never taken an IQ test that I know of. If I did, I was too dumb to know I was taking it. So it's probably
and no one told me the score after.
Yeah, and I don't know what a good score is anyway. But
every once in a while, people will be like, I mean, my IQ is this. And I think, is that good?
Yeah, I'm usually like, my IQ is whatever the imbecile level was. But I think we have to recognize that the standard that we hold is because we like to make things, we want to make things orderly and function a certain way. And it means sometimes it's just like school where some kids, it's like, yeah, your brain doesn't work this way. It works really well this way. So let's work with you this way. So kind of losing the idea of like, there is one right way to do things is helpful. I think the second thing that you have to do in terms of changing thinking, in terms of a broad picture is, you do have to stop looking at, we've used this phrasing before, and I didn't come up with this phrasing either, but it's like, no, you need to look at progression rather than performance. Mm-hmm. When we look at performance, then it's like, well, did I do a good job or did I not? And it's very dichotomous, yes or no. Progression is like, okay, well, here's what I got from this one, and here's where I want to go next. And if you keep your brain focused on progression, then you can always say, okay, well, if I don't feel like I know enough about this yet, then I'm going to go learn more. I'm going to go take a master class, or I'm going to go read this book, or I'm going to go attend this thing because I want to know more. And then it becomes less about, can I prove that I've done this, and more about I'm engaged in my own development. So then you're not worried about imposter because you're always willing to admit, I don't know. I'm here to learn and keep learning.
Yeah.
And so then you're not, part of imposter syndrome comes from the overpromise thing. It's like, well, what did I say I could do? Mm-hmm. But being able to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to, I remember in grad school when they ask you these questions getting into your PhD program, they'll ask like, what are your research interests? Or like, even like, I can't remember, they might've asked more specific, like what are, what are the topics you want to study, or, whatever it was. My answer was, I thought, I'm not going to make crap up. I said, I don't know. This is what I did my thesis on. But I haven't found the thing that really gets me really excited yet, but I do enjoy the process of research, and I like figuring things out and working with people. And so that's, like I'm open to what could come to me in terms of what I will research. And one of the professors that was interviewing me really liked that response, or at least so they said. They left the university after that. So what do I know? But it ties into the two things that I think here are things that you need to actually, and maybe these are also believe in things, but start to actually ask yourself. I had to write these down on a little card, see. But one was, I think lose when you walk into a room with some sort of imposter syndrome, it's because you're kind of analyzing, okay, what does everybody expect? And they will call me out for the fraudulent behavior that I have, or, instead of thinking, hey, look, I don't know, but this is what I can offer you. Like when I give presentations or talks or speeches, it's like, if I can stay focused on, hey, there's a message I think you need to hear, and you might resonate with the way I say it. Some woman today asked me, she's like, hey, can I make a request? I was like, sure. She's like, will you write a book? I was like, I mean, sure. But what she wanted specifically was me to rewrite a book about the psychology of Wolverine. She's like, because
Wolverine, the comic
book. Yeah. Cause she's like, cause you'll say it in a way that I'll get. I was like, I mean, I don't know anything about that. So it's like, but I thought, oh, I do know that about me. I know that I can phrase things in ways that will sink into people's heads. And so I know, like, hey, I can offer this. If in the end, kind of like if it doesn't pan out, that's okay, because it goes into the second thing to me, which is really important, is knowing, what can I offer you? But it's like, what are the strengths I have? And I think it's important to not lay your eggs, not put your eggs in the basket of, I'm really good at this skill. It's important to look and say, I'm really good at connecting with people who like, I know where to find resources, and I'm really good at like progressing, like learning. And so I will consistently be better. And that part, then it's suddenly like the pressure's off. If someone says, you're not really good at this yet, I'm like, I'm not. That's part of my progression. I'm excited about learning more about this. Like, and are you good at this? Let's talk about this then. Because if you're good at this, then help me get better at this.
Then you can help me.
Right. There's just resources all over the place. And so having that kind of mindset helps people move out of imposter, because you're not proving something anymore.
Yeah. Well, and avoid comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Which is like, really hard to do, but very valuable.
It is. But if you feel yourself saying, like, I'll often ask clients, are you like, and this has come up, like, are you good at something? And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not as good as they are.
Right.
And I think, well, I didn't ask if you were as good as they are. I just asked if you were good at it. I don't like, one, I don't even know that person, so I don't care. Like you're talking about someone I've never met. So,
right.
But it is right to me. I think, no, there's probably always someone better than I am at what I'm doing. And if that's what I choose to focus on, then it's going to suck, and it's going to feed the imposter syndrome, and it'll rob me of my ability to do probably my best work. But if I can get to that place of, like what you were talking about, no, but I have a way of seeing things, and I have a way of explaining things that are easy to understand. Like I had a professor a few years ago, and she sent back on one of the papers I turned in, and she said, you might have oversimplified it a little bit. And I thought, probably not. Like I might have oversimplified it for an academic, but I'm not working with academics. And it was one about children. And I thought, no, I'm working with children. Like I probably didn't simplify it enough.
Right.
To be honest. But it was one of those where, like, I viewed it as, no, I know how to do that. I know how to simplify things. And I think there's benefits in recognizing, yeah, I know how to do this thing. Again, it's not a comparison point. It's not, yeah, I can do it better than this person. It's just, sure, I can do it. Am I perfect? No. Right. Is there someone who can do it better? Most likely. Are there dangers in it? Sure. But I know how to do it.
Right.
And I'm good at it.
Right. And that's part of confidence, is being able to own your stuff and own your weaknesses. But
yeah.
So then remember, listeners, there's no such thing as space imposters. Only spacemen who are progressing into the great unknown. So come back next time and progress with us on the Manspace. You sit on a throne of lies.